Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. Big rains in Las Vegas mean flooding, big snow in Reno, and now a guest gone missing. Marlene Lockard has the rundown.
Congressman Jim Gibbons, and prospective gubernatorial candidate, has been called back to Washington. So we're going to have the next best thing, his political consultant Jim Denton in the hot seat today.
And coming up on the Power Pundit panel today, Dan Mason, Paul Stockton, and Alfredo Alonso. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
If you think Wells Fargo is only checking accounts, you're not seeing the whole picture. Online brokerage, mutual funds, mortgages, and home equity accounts. So get more than free checking and start reaching your goals today. Now you get the picture. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years.
Where do I want to go?
Me? Denver.
Anchorage, Alaska.
Atlanta. Vancouver.
Chicago.
We can help you get where you need to be
Paris.
or want to be.
Yankee
Reno
Stadium.
Tahoe International
Fenway
Airport. Anytime, any place, anywhere.
Anywhere.
Minneapolis.
St. Paul.
Over 170 daily flights, nonstop service to 19 cities and connections everywhere else. Reno Tahoe International Airport. Dedicated to moving you.
Jupiter.
When you need a new employee, how can you be sure who you're really hiring? A background investigation by Employer Links will uncover criminal records, verify the applicant's education, check their credit history and Social Security verification. An investigation will research professional licenses and driver's licenses and let you know why they're unemployed. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment. This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by Jim Denton along with Marlene Lockard. And Jim is going to explain what happened to Congressman Gibbons.
Well, Congressman Gibbons, as Marlene knows from having spent many years in Washington, unexpectedly had to go back to Washington, D.C. He took the red eye back last night and unfortunately couldn't make the show today, and he will be on next week.
Thank you, and we appreciate that. Explain to the folks, what's going on back in D.C. They had to go back so quickly.
Well, today is the day that they certify all of the electoral votes in Washington. It's in the Constitution that the Senate and the House meets, and they certify the electoral votes. Evidently, there are some people that are not happy over how the electoral votes, particularly in the state of Ohio, as I understand it, have came about, even though they recounted them by hand, and they came up with 300 less votes than George Bush originally got. And they're trying to make a statement. I don't know, Marlene. You know actually know more about it than I do.
Congressman Connors and others have challenged the electoral process in Ohio. They were trying to recruit a senator to also sign on as needed. Do you know if they've been successful in attracting a senator?
As of this morning, I do not believe they have been. I know that John Kerry had sent out an email saying that while he was not contesting it, that he felt that there were a number of voting irregularities in Ohio where a number of people were deprived the right to vote, that they didn't have enough machines, that they weren't properly prepared. But, the one thing I think is legitimate here, by the way, in this thing, I don't think there's any question in anybody's mind that George Bush won this election if they want to be reasonable about it. But the fact of the matter is that you have 50 states that run their elections in 50 different ways. You've got counties within those states that run them in different ways in the county. I mean, we ought to have one uniform system. We ought to have one uniform machine. And I have to tell you that I think that Dean Heller had the right idea of going with a company that had machines, that had an actual paper backup for a recount. But the fact is, we need some kind of uniform system, because since Florida's election...
Right, but Jim, one of the issues that this has raised across the country are the partisan Secretary of States, that, whether Republican or Democrat, that are elected officials, but yet they run the state's election process.
Yeah, and
so
that's a
much of
system we've had for how many years, Marlene, and we haven't had these problems.
Right.
But I think
that
part
issue
of
came
that,
up here in Nevada, and also particularly in Ohio. Both worked very hard on President Bush's campaign.
And I also think that what we've had this system in place for many, many, many years without these kind of controversies. And what I think is, one of the things that I think that it shows just how closely divided this country is. Because we've had Democratic Secretary of States, we've had Republican Secretary of States. We've never had these kind of problems before. One of the things, too, that you have to look at in this election is that George Bush, by pulling 51%, is the first person who has been elected president that has received over 50% of the vote since 1988. I mean, he's the first one to do that.
And it's interesting.
But, it shows the divisions in this country are still there.
And it certainly does. And I think it also shows that even with the increased turnout, the divisions were just enhanced rather than set aside there. My thought on this whole election process is that we ought to let the banks run the system. And the reason being is, the problems
the ATM machines work?
The ATMs, I have never had a problem with my ATM. I've been using it for about 20 years now. And if the banks can get it figured out, I think they have a better way of going with the system.
Well, I think the tone for this, by the way, was set on Election Day when they had lawyers flying all over the country. Both parties.
I agree with that.
Both parties are guilty.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
They were ready to litigate at the first moment. Both parties are guilty of that, and I think they set the real tone for that. But for Ohio to have to spend $1.5 million of taxpayer money to find 300 votes, out of 1.5 million votes that whatever George Bush won by, to find that he won by 300 less. The election's over. We need to go forward and govern.
And yet, the candidates between them spent and the parties over $1 billion in this election. So maybe $1.5 million isn't that much. Let's talk about the top of the news here, which is that Congressman Gibbons has all but announced that he's running for governor.
Well, Sam, as you know, the congressman was going to be here this morning. The congressman's going to be on your show just as soon as we can get him back. And the congressman's going to tell you what he's going to do and what his time plan is. I'm not here to tell you what the congressman's going to do.
Like a real political consultant.
And as Marlene knows, she said the same thing for the many, many years she worked for Governor Bryan and Senator Bryan. But so I'll defer to the congressman. We're going to get him on just as soon as we can when he's back from Washington, and let him speak for himself.
Okay, but let's look at the governor's race then. What would the potential of that? Little journalism flim-flam there. What would be the potential of that mean for the Democrats who are running for Dina Titus, for Richard Perkins? At this point, will they be able to raise up the money necessary to put in a good fight? Because Congressman Gibbons, if he should choose to run for governor, already has a lot of money in the bank.
Well, let's be fair here.
By law that was passed at the end of last session that allows him to use his federal election campaign war chest, we might point out, for a state election.
Which was always the case up until 2002, by the way, as you'll recall. Because, when Governor Bryan ran, I believe they had the law in place that he could use money from the governor's race to roll over into the Senate race and vice versa. That was changed in McCain-Feingold. That change was made in this Budget Reconciliation Act. We didn't even know it was in there until it had passed. But, in answer to your question, I would recommend you ask Senator Titus and Speaker Perkins, because if you look at their disclosures, they're not exactly out of money.
No, that's true. Let's take a break. We'll come back with more with Jim Denton right after this timeout.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by Sunbelt Communication.
Siegfried and Roy presents
Darren Romeo. There's magic in his voice, and there's music in his magic. Brilliant young talent like this is very rare. The music of the night.
I'm Darren Romeo.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. Wow. Fantastic.
Dinner and show package from $27.95. Call the Eldorado at 786-5700.
For a hole in your roof or a whole new roof, Ken Dillon, owner of Van Dyne Roofing, can get it fixed with his eyes closed.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The Resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
It's America's largest historical district, and it's fun for the entire family. Virginia City is where the West comes alive every day, from train rides to gunslingers. Your gang can explore mines and interesting museums, visit historic saloons, and do some great shopping. Virginia City is the ultimate in family entertainment, and it's very affordable. Come up and stay overnight in our hotels, motels, and RV park. Virginia City, the Wild West at its best.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers with consultant Jim Denton from Denton & Associates. Wanted to ask you about the other story that concerns the Gibbons family. Right after Kathy Augustine said that she might run for Congress, Don Gibbons said that if Kathy was going to run, that she was going to run, and all of a sudden, rumors are circulating again. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't know what Don Gibbons is going to do. That will end. You'll find out one of these days what Don Gibbons is going to do. But I believe what that story said was it was indicative of what a lot of people felt. What happened in how unfair of what happened in the Kathy Augustine thing was to the process. And I think what Don Gibbons said, or at least what I read in the newspaper, was she said, if she's running, trust me, I'm running. I'm not going to let that lady go to Congress.
Is there any history of one half of a family being the governor of a state and the other being in Congress?
As a matter of fact, yeah, there is. Olympia Snowe, the senator from Maine, when she was in Congress, her husband ran for governor of Maine. It's one example right off the top of my head that I can think of. The governor of Arkansas, Governor Huckabee, his wife ran for, I believe it was Secretary of State. So yeah, there's some of those things out there. But this is 05. There's a lot of speculation about what people are going to do. It'll all settle out. I mean, the election isn't until November of 06.
Jim, I'd like to shift to the other big news on Capitol Hill today, and that's the confirmation hearings of Gonzales for Bush's Attorney General. There are several leading military leaders that are opposing confirmation of Mr. Gonzales based on the memorandum that he has written, not just the Justice Memorandum, but his own authorship, or there's some debate whether Cheney's counsel ghost wrote that. But Congressman Gibbons has a terrific and proud record in the military. Does he support these memos that really denigrate and deflate the torture rules that this country has abided by? Most military leaders are concerned because those were in place to protect our own military.
Jim Gibbons was on this show. Congressman Gibbons was on this show when the scandal, the prison scandal in Iraq broke. Okay. And Jim Gibbons was on record that people have no reason, that this country has no reason, that no country has any reason. Sam, as you'll remember, he was on this show. And stated flat out that people should not be treated that way.
Yeah, and he was very clear about it.
So he would oppose Gonzalez confirmation?
That you'd have to ask the congressman. I have not discussed that with him.
And is that even the
point? The fact of the matter is he cannot. He does not get to vote on the confirmation of Mr. Gonzalez one way or the other.
I understand that, but he will be the Attorney General for the United States. So, do you know? You don't know if Congressman Gibbons supports Gonzalez?
I have to tell you that I have not had the conversation with the congressman with regard to Mr. Gonzalez.
Let's talk about power and early voting and what that means for the folks in Washoe County.
Well, you know, early voting and voting in general in Washoe County the last couple of elections has been a problem. If you look at this last general election, that Washoe County was the second to lowest turnout percentage-wise in the entire state. The only county that had fewer people vote was Esmeralda County, which only has about 600 registered voters. And you know, one of the things I think needs to happen up here is they need to greatly expand the early voting system. If you look at what happened in Clark County, almost 60% of the people, they had a record turnout in Clark County for President of the United States. Almost 60% of the people voted early. Now you can make the argument that, you know, people aren't well informed when they vote early, and there's a lot of those arguments you can make. I make the argument that the easier that you make it for people to vote, the more people you get to vote. Well, they've done that in Clark County by letting people vote in supermarkets, by letting people vote in health clubs, by letting people vote in trailers that they've set up. Even the gaming industry did a great job of setting up a trailer on the strip so that their employees could go vote. They'd bus them there. The fact of the matter is that as Clark County continues to grow and Washoe County continues to lose political influence, the fact is when you do not vote up here, it is greatly going to hurt Washoe County. And frankly, I have to tell you, that concerns me.
And why do you suppose there is such a dramatic difference in the registrar's offices in Clark County and Washoe County?
I don't know why there's such a dramatic difference, but I can tell you that there is a dramatic difference in the ease of voting. I talked to people that had tremendous problems early voting. I mean, one of the places that I guess they early voted up here was at Park Lane Mall. And people waited for hours and said, "Ah, to heck with this." Then they went to vote at a school, and they waited for hours, and they said, "To heck with this." As opposed to myself, I vote in Henderson. I walked into the Vons. I was in and out in 10 minutes.
Okay, so now the funding would come from the Secretary of State's office, correct, for the additional machines?
The funding would come from actually the Washoe County Commission. The Washoe County Commission would make that decision. And you know, the problem is that the lesson that's been learned is that the easier you make it for people to vote, the more people you have vote. You know, for example, the state of Oregon, for the last couple of years, they've done nothing but mail ballots. They don't have polling places in the state of Oregon. They consistently have one of the highest turnouts. If you look here in precincts where people vote by mail because they're too small of an area to have a precinct to go vote in, they consistently have one of the higher turnouts.
You know, the biggest change this will make in the election process will go from the October surprise to the September surprise. Just to get all those early voters.
One of the things that it does do is it tends to throw out that cheap shot negative that you see at the end of the campaign because so many people have voted early. The other thing, you know, that's the good side of it. You get more true positions because people have to take positions on issues because people are starting to vote by August 15th. Or August 15th and October 15th.
Okay, I apologize, we're out of time. Always good to have you here.
It's been a pleasure.
And we look forward to have the Congressman on next week, and we'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers with the Pundits after this time out.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
So, who do you use for workers' comp?
Pro Group Management.
Ah, I've heard some good things about them.
Oh, you bet. Employee background checks, safety training, claim seminars. Oh, and here's the great part. If you have an issue, they work for you, not against you.
Sounds perfect. And expensive.
Well, that's the best part. They saved me 30%. I've heard they've saved others 50%.
Works for me. Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
It's the next best thing to having your own wine cellar. Come to the Bonanza Casino for a first and fine dining, reasonably priced wines. When you dine at Cactus Creek Southwestern Steakhouse, you can also enjoy a fine bottle of wine at just about the same price you'd pay at the Vineyard, Silver Oak, Robert Mondavi, Rombauer, Cakebread, Jordan, and Duckhorn, just to name a few. And at the lowest prices of any restaurant or casino in Northern Nevada. And remember, all fine wines are not in wine cellars. They're in the Cactus Creek at the Bonanza Casino where locals come to play.
If you think Wells Fargo is only checking accounts, you're not seeing the whole picture. Online brokerage, mutual funds, mortgages, and home equity accounts. So get more than free checking and start reaching your goals today. Now you get the picture. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by Alfredo Alonso with Lionel, Sawyer, and Collins, Paul Stockton, who is a Democrat, and Dan Mason, who is the program director for KKOH Radio, News Talk 780. He always likes when I say that.
Got to get the brand right.
All right, well, let's talk about the gubernatorial race. Obviously, at this point, the speculation is out there, and hopefully at some time in the very near future, Alfredo, we will get a confirmation that Congressman Gibbons is actually running for governor. But how does this play out as far as Lorraine Hunt has already thrown her hat into the ring? Is she now cut off? And I'm talking about financially.
I don't know if she's cut off, but it's obviously going to make it very difficult for her to run a well-funded race. She has her constituency, and she'll obviously do a good job of raising money from them. But I think it's going to be tough to compete with Jim on the Republican side, certainly.
Dan, Dina Titus and Richard Perkins, if they have a divisive primary, are we going to see a repeat of what happened here with Senator Cannon and Jim Santini, where all of a sudden we got Chick Hecht coming out of it?
Oh, that's frightening.
I'm not comparing Jim Gibbons to Chick Hecht, but because of the divisive primary.
I think the day after the State of the State message, we should just swear Gibbons in now. Let's just get right to it.
You think it's done?
Yeah, I think he wins. I don't think it's even a question.
Okay, Paul, you want to weigh in on this?
As far as that goes, the Democrats are going to have to really prop up a candidate starting probably tomorrow. At this point, we have nobody, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I wouldn't throw it in now. I'd like to see how it unfolds, but
I agree. I don't even know.
See, I disagree.
I think
you've got
a well-funded candidate in Speaker Perkins. You've got a well-funded candidate in Dina Titus, and let's not forget about the mayor of Henderson. Jim Gibson is and can be well-funded as well. Now, granted, you've got a three-way primary, and who knows where that's going to end up. But I think you've got some good candidates there. I don't think it's a shoo-in by any means.
I agree. I think that the Democratic candidates that have all been mentioned here have been doing a lot of spade work, as well as Jim Gibbons. And so I think you'll begin to see, as early as this legislative session, them moving forward with some of their agenda to bring issues more to the forefront. But I think, Paul, you're not familiar with Dina Titus or...
That's our biggest problem, is that people within the community don't know who these people are, and that's why we need to start. They need to be in the spotlight. They need to let themselves be known. They need to let people know what their positions are. And I've never heard of anyone you've mentioned, so that could be a problem.
And that's a function of Southern Nevada candidates as well. I think that's the problem you've got, but it's also the bulk of the electorate down there as well.
But as long as Washoe County still plays a role, it's important for these candidates to be known up here, correct?
Oh, certainly. Well, and look at Jim Gibbons. I mean, Jim as a northern congressman has done an excellent job of getting himself known statewide. So obviously that's where he has a leg up on everybody else, is his name ID and obviously his record in the military. But these other candidates, again, on the Democrat side, depending on how this plays out, obviously I think they can make it competitive.
Marlene, would it be a crazy idea for the Democratic hopefuls to get together and figure out who really is truly electable and all line up behind a candidate, or does it not matter to you?
Well, those meetings have already taken place in Southern Nevada, and there have been some who are trying to get the Democratic candidates together and sift through and have one emerge to avoid just such split Democratic primary. We'll just have to watch and see how that unfolds. But there are lots of interested parties that are working very hard to make sure that just that happens.
Okay, Paul, I wanted to turn to you. You just returned from the military in Iraq, correct?
Yes, I got out of the Navy in August.
What is the situation on the ground there, and how does it compare with the media reports that you read?
Well, I guess you got to contrast with what I was hearing while I was in and what I see now. We were never hearing about casualties while I was in. With the Armed Forces Network, which is supposed to have affiliates from NBC and all the other news networks, was running Fox News 24 hours a day. So that was all we were getting as far as news goes. When I got out, I found out about the global protest, 30 million protesters in February. Had never heard about it while I was in. And just the situation over there is intense, and we're losing people, and I just don't get it. Why people maintain that the weapons of mass destruction is the reason we were there, and that still remains the reason, because we can't find them. And we continue to not find them. And it's really, it troubles me that that's what our people are fighting to find when they're not there, and then we're gonna keep propping this problem up like it's real. And like Congressman Gibbons maintains that the weapons of mass destruction is the problem. And
well, that was certainly the reason that pretty much everybody
with the
intelligence agreed.
But now we find that it's not that they're not there, and that we have no real reason to be in. And it's
I
disagree. Go ahead, Alfredo. I understand that Saddam Hussein was a problem, and now that we're there, we don't have any choice.
I mean, I think now that we're there, we have to prop this country up. We have no choice. And I think that the insurgency is getting stronger, which is a problem, and obviously they're going to have to curtail that. But we have to be there. I think.
I understand.
No doubt about that at this point.
We've done it. Now that we've been there for this long, we have to finish what we've started, and that's where we have the problem of American casualties.
Right, but I mean, it would be absolutely ridiculous for us to pull out at this point
definitely.
in time.
That's not what my argument is.
Okay, we'll take a time out, and we'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Where do I want to go?
Me? Denver.
Anchorage, Alaska.
Atlanta. Vancouver.
Chicago.
We can help you get where you need to be or want to be. Reno Tahoe International Airport. Anytime, any place, anywhere.
Anywhere? Minneapolis. St. Paul.
Over 170 daily flights, non-stop service to 19 cities and connections everywhere else. Reno Tahoe International Airport. Dedicated to moving you.
Jupiter.
And as always, we love to get your emails at newsmakers@kvbc.com and newsmakers@krnv.com. Marlene, who's coming up next week?
We have Secretary of State Dean Hellett, Senator Randolph Townsend, and Alan Feldman from the MGM Mirage.
We'll see you next week.